Hey guys, today Diablo 4 will be finally released in the Xbox Game Pass, so I thought it's a good idea to make a beginner guide for all the new players joining the D4 community. In this video I will cover the most important mechanics and activities of Diablo 4 and guide you through the early and endgame. And talking about guidance, I also want to mention that I am officially partnered with Mobalytics and their content creator program. So just like my channel, Mobalytics is a great source for guides and builds, and you can find all of my builds there as well. And you can also download the Mobalytics app to benefit from some other cool stuff like an in-game overlay with integrated class builds and in-game timers. And now let's start with the actual video. So the first important decision that you have to make in the game is choosing the right class for you. So here I don't want to influence you too much. Maybe you have also already made your choice here, and yeah, you can basically play all of them. They are all fun, and it just comes down to your personal preference. And yeah, just one tip here, so if you want to play the strongest class right now in the game, then you should try the Barbarian, since this class has been very powerful in the latest seasons and will also get nerfed in the near future. So after you have chosen your character and have finalized it, the game will also show you which current season you are playing in. So in Diablo 4 we have this seasonal system, which is very typical for ARPGs in general. And this means that every 3 or 4 months there will be a new season with additional and refreshing content added to the game. So then you will need to create a new fresh character. Like in season 4 you will create a new character and will basically start everything from the beginning. And that is something new for some players who are not familiar with this type of system. But like I mentioned, for ARPGs this is a very typical system, and I can just recommend you to try this out, and you can find out for yourself if you really enjoy playing seasons or not. If you don't want to play seasons, then you will miss this seasonal content that will get updated every 3 or 4 months. But of course you can also play on the Eternal Realm, so this way you will keep your character. So if this is your first playthrough, you will most likely start with the campaign, and you will basically play through the entire storyline of Diablo 4 and finish the campaign by about level 50, I believe. And then the actual endgame will start, and you can also play this endgame on the Eternal Realm with your internal character, or like I mentioned, in with your seasonal character in your season. So yeah, this is basically how Diablo 4 and most other ARPG works. Every season we start new characters and get new content and enjoy the game from the beginning. But yeah, I can just recommend you to try it out at least once. So after we have covered all of this basic stuff, let's start with the itemization. So in every ARPG, the itemization is the most crucial factor, I would say, which determines if the game is fun and enjoyable over a long period of time or not. And the current state of itemization in D4 is not really perfect. So for that reason, the developers have already shared with us some very meaningful changes that are coming in season 4. So just to keep that in mind, this itemization system will change a lot in the future. So I think in May the 14th, the season 4 will start, and then all of these new changes will occur. But nonetheless, I'm sure that I can teach you some basics and some useful stuff here about itemization in season 3. And I think we should start with this different item types that we have in the game. So if you're level 1, you will have some white items, so a basic weapon equipped in your character. And over the time you will loot You will kill enemies and loot items from them, and then you will first start finding blue items, and then you will most likely start finding this yellow rare items. So rare items are the by far most common type of items that you will find in Diablo 4, and especially in the end game. So if you reach World Tier 3 and World Tier 4, then these yellow items will be everything that you will find most of the time. Then besides yellow rare items, we also have this brown or golden legendary items, and then we also have unique items and uber unique items. So legendary items have the purpose that they will be the main source of legendary aspects for you. So in Diablo 4 we have this legendary aspect powers, which can change the way how we play, and these legendary aspects will also sometimes determine which build we can play in the early game and which build we want to play in the end game. So in Diablo 4 there are a lot of different builds that you can try out and play, and they are all dependent on this aspect. So legendary items are one source of aspects, and then you also have another source which is called the Codex of Power. So here you also have some basic aspects, and they can also be found in dungeons. So for example, if you want to play with a certain aspect from this Codex of Power, you can pin it on your map, and then it will automatically show you where you need to go in order to find this legendary aspect. So in this case, this would be this dungeon here, and then you would get this aspect as a reward on your first completion of this dungeon. So some of these aspects are useful, some are not so useful, and also you need to keep in mind that these aspects they have a range which they can roll. So for example here skills deal up to 20% increased damage, and here you have this range of 10 to 20%, and the Codex of Power aspects always have a min roll, so this would be only a 10% damage increase, and in order to get this max rolls on your legendary aspects, you need to loot them in the open world kinda. So you can't get a max rolled aspect from a dungeon or something, or at least not from this Codex dungeons. And like I mentioned, these aspects are very powerful, and especially if you will have are building your endgame build of your character, then you will have basically only legendary items in your gear section. You will like only legendary or unique items. So and speaking of uniques, so legendary items, the way how it works with this aspect is you loot them from enemies and all kind of content, and then you can go to this occultist. So you will have this occultists in each town, and then you can extract aspects. So here you can choose this legendary item and you will extract this aspect from it, and then you will have this aspects in your inventory as well. And then the cool thing is that you can choose any extracted aspect and imprint it on another item, like a rare item. So then you will also go to this occultist and you will choose, for example, this offensive aspect here, and then you could imprint it on your rare, and this way you would transform your rare item into a legendary item, and it will keep all of these affixes and stats, but you will have this legendary aspect on it as well. So this is how itemization basically works in Diablo 4. So you want to pick up legendaries with good and in the best case max rolled aspects, and then you extract these aspects at the occultist and imprint them on your good rare items. And which items are good and not, it all depends on the build you're playing. So here we can again take a look at Mobalytics, for example. Here we have a variety of different builds, and here you can also choose that you want specific leveling build, for example. So here Mobalytics will show you the best leveling builds for each class. So for the Barbarian, for example, you have this charge and Hota leveling build, and here you will see all of the legendary aspects that you need for this build. So here you need the Edge Masters, you need Earth Striker, you need Ancestral Charge, you need Limitless Rage. So all of this aspects. And here in the gear stat section, you will see your best in slot affixes on each piece of gear. So rare items can have up to 4 different affixes, and here in the build guides you will see which ones are the best for your build and character. So especially if you're a beginner, I can advise you to start learning these mechanics and affixes by using a guide in the beginning. And once you have understood which affixes are good and which are not so good for your character, you can start also creating your own builds or mix it up a little bit. But especially in the beginning, it's very important to understand the best in-slot affixes for your character. So then we have unique items. So like I mentioned, legendary items are only important for the legendary aspects most of the time, because you can imprint them on your rare items, which will be the best items and the most common items in the game. But then you also have uniques. Uniques are also like legendary items in terms of legendary powers. So each unique has a unique effect, unique power. But this time you cannot extract these powers, so you also cannot change any of these affixes on uniques. So you just equip them and play with them. And they also have made some changes in the latest seasons, so uniques are kind of useful right now. So for example, my build uses 4 different uniques. 2 of them are Uber uniques. The Uber uniques are very rare, so they are really extremely rare items, which can mostly be found by farming a specific Uber boss that I will show you later as well. And Uber uniques, you can say these are the most powerful items in the game. And also normal uniques like this T-Boat's Will Pants or Sky Hunter for the Rogue class are also very powerful items. And again, you can just take a look at the Mobalytics guides or take a look at the guides on my channel, for example, and then you will find out which uniques are the most important for your build. So now I want to talk about item power. So since you are starting with the campaign and then you are spending most of your time in World Tier 1 and 2 in the first 40 or 50 levels of the game, the most crucial thing that you need to keep in mind when it comes to items and choosing the right item for your character is item power. So item power, it's very important because it determines how much damage your character will deal and also how much defense you have against all the enemies of the game. So item power, for example, my weapon here, I have this 923 plus 25 item power, and this means that this determines my damage per second of this bow, for example, and also the same goes for the swords. So here you can see the item power cap right now is at 925. So if you will reach the world tier 4, so the last world tier, the highest difficulty in the game, this is the tier where you will have a chance to drop this 925 item power items, and then you will reach your maximum potential. So for weapons, this will determine your damage per second, which will scale with your skill damage and with your basically total damage output. And for the rest of the gear, so for your defensive gear pieces, the item power will determine how much armor your character has. And armor is very important because this will determine how much physical damage you will take. So here you can see I'm taking 70% reduced physical damage from enemies of equal level, and physical damage is by far the most common damage type in the game. But if you are in World Tier 4, you will also encounter some enemies with elemental damage types, and for that purposes you have your resistances here. So you have fire resistance, lightning, cold, poison, and shadow resistance. And you can also max out these values. They are capped at 70%, armor is capped at 85%. So here your goal is to get as much armor and as much resistances as possible to reach this 85% armor and 70% resistance cap. And this way you will just get a lot less physical and elemental damage. So resistances are only for elemental damage and armor is only for physical damage. But yeah, that's why item power is very important, and I would say that everything that you need to worry about in the early stage of the game is to compare the item power and always take the highest item power of each item category. One exception is maybe something like gloves, because on gloves you want this plus ranks to a skill. So for example, this build here I'm playing with Barrage, so I want plus 4 ranks of Barrage on my gloves. So here it's pretty important that you get a decent plus 4 ranks skill of skill affix here. Also in the early game it's pretty useful, but everything else is not too important in the early game, so I would just recommend you to pay attention to this item power. And I can also show you my channel here really quickly, because on my channel I also have made a complete guide for itemization. So it's this video here. It's called Itemization Guide for Season 3. And here I also go over basically all of tips and tricks that I have in mind for itemization. So if you're interested in that topic, you can also take a look at this video here. Okay, and now before we go over to the next topic, I want to quickly show you the most important crafting mechanics in Diablo 4 right now. So like I mentioned, the itemization system will change in Season 4, and we will also get a lot more crafting mechanics and options. But right now we have this enchanting system, and it will also stay in Season 4. And enchanting is basically replacing one affix from your item with another random one. So here you can push this button and you can take a look at all of the different affixes that could roll on this item. So here you can just replace one affix for another. And yeah, this is very important right now, because it's like the best way to get your best in slot item affixes on your gear. And this process costs some materials. So here, for example, you need to pay some wheeled crystals, which are not too difficult to get. But here also you need to pay 2 forgotten souls. These ones are a little bit more rare to get, and I will also show you later where you can farm them. And then let's quickly go over to the blacksmith, because here we also have another little crafting system. It's not really crafting, it's just upgrading items. So for example, you can see here in my inventory I have this 5 ranks on all of my items. So this is this upgrading system. So for example, if you have a rare item, you can place it here, and then you can click on upgrade. This will also cost you some materials and gold, and then you can see this will increase all of your stats on your item. So all of your affixes will become more powerful, and the item will also get higher item power. So this is also something you need to keep in mind. So especially on weapons, if you have found a very decent weapon, then it's a good idea to upgrade it to at least 4 ranks. so you will maximize your damage this way pretty efficiently. So, and yeah, now let's go over to the next topic, which is activities in Diablo 4. So I'm assuming that if you're a new player, you like the first thing that you will do is playing the campaign and finishing the story of Diablo 4, which is kind of nice, to be honest. And after that point, you will slowly get into the end game. And here, the first step that you will need to do is you will need to finish capstone dungeons. So you will, if you are on World Tier 1 or World Tier 2, in order to unlock World Tier 3, you will need to finish this Cathedral of Light capstone dungeon. So this one will be exactly here in this Cathedral of Penshot. So you will just go in here and you will then need to finish this dungeon and also kill the boss at the end. And if you need help in that regard, I also have some videos for that. So for example, here I have a guide for the rogue class, how you can very easily kill the Cathedral of Light boss at level 40, which is pretty early, or at least not too late. And also here for the next capstone dungeons, so we have 2 capstone dungeons in the game, one for World Tier 3, one for World Tier 4. And here also have a rogue guide for this much harder capstone dungeon. So here I can recommend you to start it at least, so you should be at least level 60, which is also kind of early. But if it's too difficult for you at level 60, you can also start at level 70 or even 75. So just take your time if you need some more decent gear. And yeah, here I have some guides on my channel, or you can of course search for some other guides for other classes on YouTube. But you need to keep in mind that this is what you need to do in order to unlock this World Tier 3 and World Tier 4. And your goal is to basically unlock World Tier 4 as quickly as possible, because these the whole end game of Diablo 4 is happening here. This is the most difficult difficulty in Diablo 4, and you will have much more experience gain, you will have more gold, you will have better items, so everything you need will be in World Tier 4, and for that reason you want to unlock it as quickly as possible. Okay, so now you are finally in World Tier 4, and the question is, what kind of activities can you actually do in the game? The first important activity is called Helltides, and you can find it when you open your map, and you can see this area is in a very red painted color here. So this means this is the active Helltide area right now. So this area is changing throughout the day, and Helltides have 2 major purposes, I'd say. So you want to get materials from the Helltide, so you get this Fiend Roses and you get this Forgotten Souls from the Helltides, and you need both of them in order to use the crafting systems that I just showed you. And for that reason Helltides will be very crucial in order to get these resources. And then you also want you want to open this Gifts of Living Steel. So these are chests that you can open after you have cleared enough enemies. So Helltides work in this way here. You have enemies, you kill them, and they drop this cinders. And after collecting a certain amount of cinders, so you can see here, for example, you will need 275 cinders in total to open this chest. And then you will open it, and it will give you some elixirs, some Forgotten Souls I just mentioned, Fiend Roses, and also you will get Living Steel. So here you have these consumables, section in the inventory, and you have different materials which are needed in order to summon Uber bosses. So Uber bosses are another activity that you can do in the end game. I will also cover that in a second. But yeah, one source of these materials are Helltides. So here you can farm these living steels. So here you can take a look at the different Uber bosses in the game. Currently there are 5 different bosses. We have Uber Duriel, we have Varshan, Grégoire, Lord Zir, and the Beast in the Eyes. And the main reason why we want to farm the Uber bosses is because they have unique loot tables. So each boss has a loot table that contains a bunch of uniques that can drop only from this boss. So for example, Varshan, you can take a look here. We have all of the different classes, and then you can see what items you can get from Varshan. So for the rogue class, for example, you can get the Withering Band of Trickery, Condemnation, Eyes in the Dark, and Sky Hunter. And some of them are items that can also drop from other bosses. So for example, here with Grégoire you have something like Wind Force, and this one can also drop from the Beast in the Eyes, like you can see here. So some are double, but some are unique. So for example, Sky Hunter can only drop from Varshan, and this for example is a very important item in the current rogue endgame meta. So this is like the biggest reason why we want to farm these bosses. And then there's also another big reason, which is Uber uniques. So Uber Duriel is the only boss right now that can drop this Uber uniques, which are the most powerful items in the game, like I mentioned before. They theoretically can also drop in the open world, but it's not really realistic that you will find one there. So here at least we have a 2% chance to drop one, so it's still very rare, very uncommon, but still much higher odds than compared to the open world. So if you really want one of the Uber uniques, then there's no other way than farming Uber Duriel. And the way how you can farm Uber bosses like Uber Duriel is you need this summoning materials that I also already mentioned. So you have these different materials. Living Steel is for Grégoire, and in order to summon Uber Duriel, you need to summon and kill Grégoire, and also summon and kill Varshan. Varshan will drop X, and Grégoire will drop shards. So you need both. You need X, so this is this egg from Varshan, and you also need shards, which I currently don't have in my inventory. And you need 2 of each of them in order to summon Duriel one time. And this is basically how this entire Uber boss loop works. You are farming materials, then you are killing these Uber bosses, and you are farming more materials by that in order to summon Duriel, which can give you access to this most powerful items in the game. So for example, this Harlequin Crest Shaker here is an Uber unique, and also this Ring of Starless Skies. And both of them are very powerful items. So this is so we have covered 2 activities so far, Helltides and Uber bosses. In order to summon Uber Varshan, you need this materials here. You need the Gargling Head, you need Malignant Hearts, you need Blackened Femurs, and you need this Trembling Hands. All of them can drop by finishing Whispers. So if you have already finished the campaign, you should be familiar with this Tree of Whispers. After you have unlocked or finished the campaign, you unlock this Tree of Whispers here, and then you can always check your map for some whispers. So here, for example, you can do this dungeon for 5 Grim Favors. You can do this harvest for 3 Grim Favors. So you collect Grim Favors, which are also displayed on the bottom of your map. And if your Grim Favors are full, you can go to the Whispers and get your Whisper reward, basically. And then you will have a high chance to get this Varshan materials. So yeah, then like I mentioned, you kill Varshan, you kill Gregoire, and you get this new materials, this eggs and shards, and then you will summon Uber Duriel and hunt for this Uber uniques and other uniques. So now we have covered the whispers as well. What else can you do? You can, of course, do your nightmare dungeons. So starting from world tier 3, you have access to your nightmare dungeons. So here you can craft these sigils. You can craft them by the occultist. And the first one will also drop from the whispers. And I think it's a little bit annoying staying here. So let's move. So yeah, you can of course do your nightmare dungeons. You will spend most of the time leveling in this nightmare dungeons because there you will have the highest amount of experience. So I can highly recommend you leveling only with nightmare dungeons. Everything else is not very efficient regarding to leveling. So yeah, that's what you should do most of the time during a season. And of course, you also have seasonal content. So this season, for example, we have, like besides the nightmare dungeons, which are basically cracked up dungeons, so very dungeons with more powerful and dangerous monsters. And you can, like you have a range of different tiers in this dungeons. So this is like a tier 83, which is pretty high. In the beginning, you want to farm some lower tiers, but you also have seasonal content, which in this season we have this walls, and they are pretty similar to nightmare dungeons. So they also have a tier, like you need a key to unlock them and to enter them, and they also have different tiers with different monster levels. And this season the walls kind of replaced the nightmare dungeons just because you had much more rewards in the walls. So if you are playing the season, I can highly recommend you to try out these walls. So here you will also you can also enter them just like nightmare dungeons. You use your key and then you can find them on your map and you will teleport to those dungeons. And it's yeah, this content for the season 3 right now, but this always changes. So some seasons have some other content. This time we have this dungeon content, and here you can see it's very similar to a nightmare dungeon. So we also can kill monsters, and in the end we want to get to the final room where we will get our rewards in form in the form of items. So basically we get a lot of different legendaries and rares. And also what is very good about this nightmare dungeons or walls in season 3 is that you can level your glyphs there. So I can also show you that. You will need to level your glyphs up, because glyphs are very powerful and very needed in the end game in order to maximize your build, like to finish your character. So here, after finishing the walls, for example, you will go into this end room here, or actually I can show you in this video. So here you will have this glyph statue, and here you can level your glyphs. So I will show you what are glyphs. I will show you that in the next section when we talk about skills and Paragon boards. But glyphs are very important, and that's another reason why you need to finish this nightmare dungeons and level with nightmare dungeons or walls, because you will not only level your character but also level your glyphs, which are very important. But yeah, that's actually everything that the game has to offer right now. There's one more thing that I can show you. So with the mid-season update, we also had we got this new content in form of trials. So this is also called the Gauntlet. So here you can see, for example, I placed rank 12 last week. So each week there is a new Gauntlet dungeon that you can play, and then you will compete in the leaderboards. So if you are a competitive type of gamer, then you can try to enjoy this Gauntlet dungeons, but I have to say that it's not really well designed for the majority of players right now, so I'm not sure if you will really enjoy this type of content for a long period of time. But you can also try out this Gauntlet here, so you go to collections, you go to trials, and then you can push this start button and you will participate each week in a different Gauntlet dungeon. Okay, I think that I have covered all of the different endgame activities so far, so I'd like to finish off this video with taking a closer look at the Paragon system. So after you've reached level 50 and have unlocked all of your skills in your skill tree, you will get access to the Paragon board. And so here this is basically a way how you can even further optimize and maximize the overall power of your character. And here you are combining different Paragon boards with different glyphs and different nodes to form your final character. And like with the different builds in the game, I also can advise you here to start with a guide. So if you are completely new to the game, then I think it's the best to learn all of these mechanics by following a guide in the beginning, and then you will step by step learn and understand which boards and what nodes and glyphs are powerful and so on. So I also mentioned previously that in the Nightmare dungeons you also want to level up your glyphs. So glyphs become important in this Paragon system. So you can see here right now I have, for example, 6 glyphs equipped. So each board has space for 1 glyph, and glyphs can be very powerful. So the further you level them up, the higher the power level is that you will get from them. So basically you are increasing your damage, and so here for example I have this combat glyph which gives me 194% critical strike damage, which is really huge. It's a lot damage, and this is because I have it leveled to level 21, which is the maximum level. So it's a good idea to stick to the guide and start leveling the glyphs that you need for your endgame build, since this will also take some amount of time. So yeah, I can just recommend you to play with a guide in the beginning and level the glyphs that you need in the end game, and then you should be able to have a good Paragon board in the end. So I can show you again, like with the mobility side here, you also have this Paragon board section. So you have your items, you have your skills, and the Paragon board. And here then you can just take a look at the Paragon board and follow basically this guidance here. And of course, I can invite you to my channel. So I have many guides and builds that are focused on the rogue class. So on this channel here, I'm doing content most likely about the rogue in general, but sometimes I also do some other content. If you also have some problems with killing some Uber bosses, like here Uber Varshan, or I also have a video for Uber Duriel. If you have problems killing them, you can also take a look at some of my videos here. But yeah, in general, I think that's it for this beginner guide. It's a very long video already, but I hope that you have learned a lot of things and have gotten a kind of overview over all of the stuff that is currently in the game. Like I mentioned, in Season 4, a lot of things will change again, so we will have a kind of new game at this point, but it's still about 2 months until Season 4, so yeah, for all of you who are starting with Diablo 4 this season with the Xbox Game Pass, for example, I think that I have provided you with some useful tips and information. So thank you for watching, guys. If you enjoyed this content, leave me a like, and don't forget to subscribe my channel, especially if you're interested in the rogue content, which is the main content here. And yeah, thank you for watching, have a nice day, and I see you in the next one. Bye bye.